How's it? This is a review of a book I recently read, long overdue, this review, a book called This is Marketing by Seth Godin. These reviews are just some of my thoughts. I really recommend you read the book. This one is one of the good ones. Towards the end, I've got some ideas of how it affects, CEOs or someone in my position who, is going to struggle with implementing these. So this is why it's an honest review. I do want to go through some of the main things which have an impact on someone that's in my position, but I also want to make sure that you get some of the nuggets, right? So just in short, the book did come out in 2018. Seth Godin is the author, and I've become a big fan of his. He has written other great books, which I've read some of them before, but the man is a writing machine. He has written so many books and so many blogs. Also runs businesses. Has got some great things on YouTube, so I really recommend getting into him. He does present a completely different way of marketing. And if I take a favorite meme, there's the Persian talking to King Leonidas saying, "Oh, this is madness." And I do feel like sometimes the digital marketing world is this madness. And here comes along this book. This is marketing. This is Seth Godin's view of marketing. And it does feel like it. It feels like this declaration, although he's quite a quiet and no, not quite as Dak as King Leonidas. So why is this book worthwhile to look at and to review as a CEO? Really, marketing is more about who your customers, what is your product for. It really is a central part of your strategy. What your business is about is clearly going to be impacted by who it's for. I hear a lot, and we have had this, is a sales and marketing problem, when sometimes we have a fundamental value problem. We don't really understand who we're trying to serve and what are we trying to serve them with and what problem we're trying to solve. It's become clearer and clearer to me over time that that is the most important question that we've got to be answering in the business all the time. And of course, when you're founding a new business, you start off with it and you learn over time and you keep improving it. So if you don't get this right in the beginning, it's very hard to change course. I've had to do that. And then what the book does offer is it explodes this lie of mass marketing, that we can just put billboards up, or we can go onto digital advertising, digital media, and we can blast adverts out there and it will just bring in the customers. It does not work. Hasn't worked for me, hasn't worked for most businesses I've come across. Very, very important that you, especially in the B2B space, take a different approach. Ask some fundamental questions, so it helps to guide you through it. Although I must say, and this is some of the maybe criticism, is that it's very difficult actually to apply these things. So it can be a list of things you would like to do, but very hard. All right. So the book starts off with saying, well, start with empathy. Don't start with, how can I start a business? I want to make money. Let me see, I can do this. I can make this product. Then try to fit it into a need. Actually should start off with simple questions like, what would matter here? Who is what I'm trying to do something for? Who are these people, and what is this thing I'm doing for? That's a much more fundamental question than, I want to start a business and I want to make money. Of course, you're going to make money, but start off with the question of what would matter. Right? Then in that question is a question around, who is this for? And it's best to start off with as small a group as possible, to say, well, it is for everybody in the country. Well, that's not going to help you. It's for everybody who drives cars. Still too big. You have to focus. If you're going to start a business, or you're going to have any sort of successful marketing focus, it's got to be focused on a small group. And you can ask yourself the question, who will find this indispensable? Who could not live without this if you could produce it for them? And if it's only 10 people and they're not willing to pay, then it's not worth doing. So then you're going to stop, unfortunately. But if you can find this group of people who need something, for whom you think you can make something indispensable, and it's a big enough group, that's who you start off with. But be very specific, down to the the actual psychographic, maybe even get down to something like there's 100 people or there's 1,000 businesses that could do something with this, and I'm going to focus on them, and because I'm going to have to go to the extremes for them to figure out what it is that they want, how am I going to deliver to them, and really make a difference for them so that they go out and tell your story to others. That's how marketing really works. I think the kernel of this book is, don't try and speak to the mass market. Speak to a very, very small market and get those people to spread the word for you. And this is one part where I find difficult, but he says, tell the story that that group wants to hear. Speak to them in their language. Communicate with them in the way that they would most understand, that they want to be communicated with. You've got to match them, not them match you. So if you go out and say everybody that I think will fit into my perfect profile must do this, when in fact there's a big disconnect. So rather focus on the people, figure out who they are, try and understand them, right? You've got to answer this question of saying, people like us, that group, people like us do things like this. I don't know, people who of a certain age group in our city love mountain biking. And what do? Well, they mountain bike on a Saturday morning, stop off somewhere for coffee. If you're going to serve them, you've got to know that they care about a certain type of activity, and that they're going to dedicate themselves in a certain way to certain things. And this is what they care about. Then the thing is ideally your product or your service, what you do, is easy to spread in the first place, easy to talk about it, easy to share. And then the second part is if it's better for more people, well, so if your customer, it's better for them that they share it with somebody, that it gets better, the more it gets shared, well, then you've built in virality and network effects into your product. He gives the example of a fax machine. A guy who likes to use new tech buys a fax machine. We're talking here 35 years ago, more 40 years ago, right? I can imagine that you would buy it, and then you CEO of a company say, okay, well, to my suppliers, you have to get fax machines because I'm going to send the orders by fax. I'm not going to write a letter anymore and mail it. You're going to get it by fax. And it gets better for the person who bought the fax machine if other people buy fax machines. And so they go out there and they market the product for the fax machine maker, because it makes sense. If I've got a fax machine, more other people have it, better for me. So I got to market it. So think about marketing into the product design, into your service design, so that the more people share it, the better it is for the people who are sharing. Trust is one thing we know about. So there's a portion here about earning trust. Instead of trying to interrupt people with your marketing by putting up billboards, rather earn their trust. Figure out ways to do things for them, to create the trust. Then do things like creating tension. So this is not, don't coerce people. Oh, you must buy this because cool people do this, and we kind of trick people sometimes with marketing. We want to push them into buying something. But rather must be the other way around, right? You can use tools like scarcity and fear of missing out, etc. But really make it quite genuine to create this tension around what you do, so that people want to be involved, they want to use your product, they want to be there because there's something special. You've created some tension, and they want to come and join you to relieve that tension and to move forward. And there's another part about progressing towards goals. I'm going to skip through the rest here. It's important to understand how people perceive their own status. Will your product reduce their status, increase their status? Are there people who like dominance or prefer affiliation? Most customers would like to be affiliated. So things around affiliation, being part of a group, having loyalty programs, things like that. And the sense that people want to be part of a group where the leaders that they respect are part of. So use that as part of your motivations. This is part I really love, which is it's the generosity side. Once you've picked your group, once you've figured out what you're saying to them, once you've figured out how to work with them, and go deeper, go to the extremes for them. Instead of looking for more customers and other segments, look for ways to work for those people specifically and go deeper for them. Keep doing more and more and more. Find that group of people, solve their pain points, solve their problems, and keep going deeper for them. Delight them. They will then share your story with others, right? They will continue to go. So continue to find ways to go deeper. One question I like that they ask is, if you were to charge 10 times as much for your product or service, right? It's a mind experiment. If it was 10 times more expensive, what would you have to do in order for it to be worth it? What extremes would you have to go to? How amazing and how indispensable would your product have to be in order for people to be willing to pay 10 times more than what you're currently thinking of offering it or what your competitors offer it at? Yeah, there's many products in the world which are like this, and they go to the extremes for their customers. And finally, continuing with the trust element is that you must continue to show up often, continue to deliver year on year on year. Marketing is not something you put out one advert, you explain to people how amazing you are, and then everybody believes. They don't, right? You build your brand and you build the integrity of your brand through years and years and years of delivery. And do it with humility, not with arrogance and with pride, and continue to be generous. This is that continuous building of you investing in your group of people who will then take you to the rest of the world because they'll love what you do and they want to see you succeed. So what are the problems with the book, right? It's hard to do this because partly it's asking you to start in a vacuum. It says you must go and reassess everything you know about your customers and your group and so forth. And it's very hard to do this, right? How can you do this if you are not currently at a point in time in your business where you can just toss out everything you've been doing and start afresh? Very, very hard. So I don't think that the book gives you tools to do that. It just says that, well, this is what we think you should do. This is marketing. It's just not what you have been doing. It does to some degree, I think, ask you to ignore maybe your DNA or your passions or what's central to the founders or the business, in the sense that they want you to be empathetic towards your customers, to be so empathetic such that you will speak in their language and really address them and have their concerns at heart. It does feel a little bit antithetical to those who say, well, focus on something that you really believe in. But I think there's maybe a healthy tension there. So can you be sincere with a group when you're not speaking directly from yourself? You're trying to mimic their language. I think that's the problem. Don't mimic, but be genuinely interested in them and be generally trying to understand them and get in with them. So I think that that's the bridge, but it's difficult. It's hard to know who's really this minimum viable audience, right? Who are these super users? Sometimes you can figure them out. Do you then fire customers who don't fit into that? So you may have picked up customers over the years who do not fit into this. If you tell your employees only focus on these key customers and do everything, go to extremes for them, they will ignore the others. That might be a problem. And finally, there's no formula. I don't think that this is a big problem, but it is a problem in the sense that the book doesn't gives you a bit of a roadmap to questions to ask, but you'd almost need a workshop, many workshops to go through this, and there isn't much material there for you to be able to go and examine this deeper. It does stay a bit reflective. But finally, I think the book is amazing, right? So if you're able to, or you're going to try to pivot your marketing, then this book has some amazing things. I think especially if you're in the B2B space, maybe in the consumer space and B2C, there is more mass marketing options available, maybe, but I still think that the principles here work just as well. I think they just work more so for B2B, because I find B2B online and digital marketing does not work. Never seen any value from it, really. We are getting value now when we are being extremely focused and we are following the principles of this book. So we are doing it. We've wasted money and time over the years. We've also thought we had this marketing problem, but really we've got a value proposition problem and an understanding of who that is for. And so we are busy working on that and have been over the last months and making a good dent in this. Right. I think you must understand what marketing is, not advertising. Marketing must be at the center of your business, because it's really about who are you trying to serve. Don't erupt clients, earn their attention, do great things for them. Change your strategy so that it takes this into account. Change your product so that it takes this into account. And then also change your delivery So it takes into account of these principles of focus and being generous and going to the extremes for that small group. There's also lots of great tips in the book, so I do